Hello and welcome to the Working Tools Masonic Podcast, where today we'll be interviewing Most Worshipful Brother Don MacKenzie.
Ladies and gentlemen, brethren all, welcome to the Working Tools Podcast, a casual conversation around Freemasonry. First, it's important to note that our opinions and thoughts are our own and do not reflect those of our Grand Lodge or respective craft or concordant bodies. Please connect with us and ask questions, either here on YouTube or on our Facebook page. We'd also appreciate a thumbs up and especially any comments on our videos.
Welcome to the Working Tools Podcast. Today we're have our usual hosts, Worshipful Brother Stephen Chung and Brother Connor Massey who are both members of the Grand Lodge of British Columbia and the Yukon. And I'm Matt Appel from down here in Washington. And we have with us our special guest this evening, Most Worshipful Brother Don MacKenzie, who has been Grand Master of British Columbia and the Yukon for about 48 hours now. Is that correct? Well, congratulations, sir, and welcome.
My pleasure to be here.
We are so glad that you have the time to spend it with us. It's an honor to have you on our podcast, and wanted to make sure that you got to get a message out. I'm sure everyone that goes into your chair has a distinct message for their year, and we'd love to hear it and have it broadcast through our podcast. And but you know, for your installation as Most Worshipful Grand Master, tell us how that felt, like the experience, because we didn't get to see you this year.
It was an amazing experience, as you can imagine. There was 27 people there. Usually there's about 550 people there. So the whole installation ceremony had to be adapted, but it was adapted in the fashion that it still had lots of solemnity and dignity. So it was a great installation. I'll never forget it for the rest of my life.
I mean, my first Grand Lodge was last year's when you were installed as Deputy Grand Master. And if I remember well, there was about 500 and so people there. Most of them were really hungover. So I imagine there was a lot less drunk people at your installation.
Well, I'm not sure. The truth, I was too busy to look around.
Yeah, I'll bet, and certainly a unique experience, I'm sure. And so, going into your year as the Most Worshipful Grand Master, tell us, do you have any particular goals that you want to share, or messages that you want to get out, or things you want to support?
Well, I'd like to come out of this pandemic even stronger than we went into it. We're very challenged. All the jurisdictions have the same challenge. Washington, I've talked to your Grand Master down there, Chris. I know him quite well. And he's got some of the same challenges. Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, much the same. We just have to hopefully communicate with the brethren, keep them engaged until we can meet again. That's really what it is.
Yeah, and you've done a couple of cool things in that department. If memory serves me correctly, I seen an email not that long ago. You had one of the lodges build a trestle board with online meetings.
Yes, that was a Worshipful Brother Silvera out of Vancouver, and I asked him if he'd do it, and he just jumped at the chance. He thought it was a great idea. Wondered why he hadn't thought of it, and so far I think it's working quite well for these online meetings. It would be very nice for the Grand Line officers to be able to scan a trestle board of some sort and just all of a sudden show up at one of their meetings. I think it would be wonderful. You know, good for us as well, because we're feeling kind of tied back right now, where we can't do what we should be doing.
Yeah, it's the new age of traveling. Being the new traveling man is now jumping on your computer and being anywhere. The really cool thing is like in Washington, they have a District 8 round table on Thursday nights which is much more like along the lines of our More Light Night piece of education and then open discussion about it. And so I've met brethren there, and then, I never get to go to Creston because it's a 5.5 hour drive. Well, I've been meeting brethren up there, and funny enough, so have other brethren that I've seen around the province popping in on all these different ones. And so I can attribute that to your trestle board idea there. I think that's great. We'll make sure that we get David to punch up the right address for that, and links for when we publish podcast.
That'd be wonderful if you could. That'd be wonderful.
I can say that I've probably traveled the farthest from my desk chair. I've attended this what's it called? Victory Lodge, I think. That is an entirely virtual lodge based out of the United Grand Lodge of Victoria in Australia. I have to go. It starts at 1 a.m. in the morning, but it's worth it.
Yeah, it's Endeavour Lodge, isn't it?
Endeavour, yes. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it was involved with a ship.
Well, and wasn't that really a cool experience, being able to visit people from somewhere else that you would not otherwise have the chance?
Absolutely.
I know that Zoom is something new for a lot of the brethren, as I've helped several of them get on to several different meetings and whatnot. And but once they're on it, I tell you, the brethren are really adapting well to using Zoom, and I think that's a great thing for our fraternity, because I know that during these times we're all missing the fraternal aspect of visiting, and though we can do a socially distant regular meeting, we can't have visitors, and we can't do degree work. So we're missing that fraternal aspect, and this really is filling that void right now for a lot of Masons everywhere. So I think the Grand Lodge has done a great job at implementing Zoom throughout the chain of everybody who needs to communicate. So I look forward to seeing more out of the Grand Lodge. I'm hoping that we can delve right into all that education that Trevor has on the websites, and see a lot more education coming through with the use of Zoom now. That's what I'm hoping for, because there's a lot of really good material out there.
The 9 o'clock toast that looks after that trestle board has had some very good education meetings on there. We had one that was, I think it was over 90 people on it, and a very good presentation. It was about an hour and 20 minutes. It was fantastic presentation.
Fantastic. And is there anything special and new and exciting technology-wise that you're going to implement in your year here that we can look forward to, Most Worshipful?
Well, I don't know about that, but we've already been using Zoom a tremendous amount. As a matter of fact, one of the first hurdles that I came upon was the district deputy training session that's usually held in April. We couldn't do that this year, so we got together and we put on a 2-day course for the incoming district deputies, and it was very well received. I think we had 100% attendance.
Yes.
And the technology committee assisted with that and did a fantastic job. Chris did a great job.
Yeah, I enjoyed that. I could have just sat in the background and enjoyed all that education and all that training you were giving all those guys, but I knew it wasn't for me, so I faded out after everybody got on.
One of the neatest things, Chris, was that the presenters had 100% concentration on the presenters. It was really good. And if somebody needed to go up and get a cup of coffee, they did that and come back. And we had a open line session at the end, and everyone got to know themselves. And since then we've had monthly district deputy meetings.
Excellent.
So it's been excellent that way. One other use of the new technology is we had an online session for the incoming Grand Directors of Ceremonies and Marshals, but not just for this upcoming year, 2 years in advance. So we've got the next 3 years working together to make
that's
sure
fantastic.
that we got protocol within the lodges.
Yes.
They're working as a team now, having online meetings themselves. It's great. It's all good stuff.
Excellent.
So do you foresee this change in the way we do some of these business things? Do you foresee that being permanent? Do you think that a lot of lodges will keep those meetings, or do you think basically once the coast is clear, everyone's going to switch back to the way things used to be?
I don't know. I think if nothing else, it would be fantastic for the district deputies to be able to get together and work on things together. Our last Board of General Purpose meeting that we had was 100% on Zoom. And that was the first time that was ever done. I've done lots of first time things this year.
And I'll bet your attendance was a lot better too.
It was pretty good, yeah. I forget what the numbers were, but it was lots of people on there.
Yeah, because sometimes guys can't travel for those BOGP meetings you guys have, and I imagine this enables them to get there much easier.
Especially from the island and up in the interior. You know, it worked really well. Really well.
Now, for those who don't know, the Grand Master of British Columbia and Yukon has this really special ability where he can just walk from Vancouver Island to the mainland. He doesn't have to use the ferries. That's just for his year. As soon as he becomes the immediate past Grand Master, he has to start using the ferries again. But that's a benefit of the job. But for everyone else, we have to use this wonderful ferry system to get from the mainland to Vancouver Island, where I live, and back again. So it does make things a little bit tricky when
I would imagine too. Sorry.
Go ahead.
People here in Washington like to complain about the lodges being far apart, and I mean, frankly, we got nothing on British Columbia and Yukon. There are some big distances involved in between some of those places, and I can imagine that just having the ability to do this is lets you maintain some of those connections that otherwise would fall aside.
Yeah,
we haven't really got into that much, Matt, at this point. That's why that trestle board is so important. I think very good for us to reach out to the guys in the north and just be there.
Yeah, we should. I got to get my more light night that Prince Charles and St. George's Lodge do. We've now put that on Zoom on a regular thing, so I'll get that added to that trestle board, and I look forward to hopefully seeing continuance of those types of things. And as a side note for you, Most Worshipful, I also remember in an email recently that the Grand Line was still missing the social aspect, and if we were having any socially distant barbecues or things like that, we were to let them know. And on July 25th, Prince Charles Lodge is having the Worshipful Masters socially distanced barbecue in Peachland, or pardon me, in West Kelowna, at the bottom of the hill there, at Pritchard Park. And I'll send you the details on that. And of course, it's by invite only, and you have one. Okay.
Do you also do me a favor, Stephen, and that's send it to the Grand Secretary, because he's keeping a list of them. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So, to GLO at Freemasonry. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. I'll do that. I'll make sure that happens.
Oh, I was about to say the Grand Secretary is about to bust down your door and strangle you here.
Yeah, the official invite will go that way.
That's great, Stephen.
Yes. What about, any message you want to convey to the listeners of our podcast in particular, Don?
Well, I don't have a theme this year, because when we started our multi-year plan, we agreed not to have themes. Last year, the Grand Master had his "You'll Never Walk Alone." It's just a catchphrase, sir, and that was very successful. I thought of one for my year, and the only thing I could come up with is improvise, adapt, and overcome. And I think that's pretty much is going to sum up what our year is about.
I think that's also the unofficial motto of our podcast.
But the last couple of months we've been improvising and adapting. But I'm going to count on all the brethren for their help in overcoming all these problems that we have. Like I said, I'd like to come out of this pandemic stronger than we went in. I know it's a wishful thought, but all in all, I think possibly what some of the public has gone through this last 3 months should improve Masonry.
I would imagine.
Like, I think people are getting back to their roots a little more. They're learning how to cook again rather than go out for dinner all the time. And I think some of it should be good for us.
Yeah, I know it's been great for me. My wife hasn't cooked so much in the last decade as she has since COVID, right? So it's working good for me.
I was home by myself. I was self-isolating for 2 months. My wife was caught down in the States after they closed the border because her mother lives in Washington. And we were down there moving her. And I came home, and my wife didn't want to come home and self-isolate. So I was here by myself, and she was helping her mother move into her new place and whatever.
And so
I've never cooked so much in my life either. So.
Yeah. It's amazing the things you remember how to cook, eh? Shepherd's pie. I was getting real good at that one.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Do you use beef or lamb?
Well, some depends on who I'm feeding.
Because shepherd's pie is only shepherd's pie if it's with lamb. Otherwise, if it's with beef, it's cottage pie.
Well, see, that depends on who's coming over.
So when I come over, it'll be like...
Yeah.
If I ever come over, it'll be like whatever the cheapest meat you can find is.
No, I'll get lamb for you, buddy. I'll get lamb.
Good.
Is there a horse herd's pie? Is that a thing?
You make the Irishman in me happy.
Right. So I understand, Don, that the Grand Lodge had come up with a great plan and had all the district deputies and everybody else installed in their respective areas and whatnot. You want to tell us how that was, I think, fantastically planned. Kudos to Grand Lodge for figuring that out.
Well, the way it worked was if there was a district deputy or a steward or what have you in a district, they would be installed there on the following day past when we got installed on the 19th. And I've had some good messages from some of the district deputies. It was a very thought out ceremony. Small, of course, but it didn't require a bunch of brethren coming to the lodge where it would be possibly dangerous. So as Connor said yesterday, I think there was 17 in Nanaimo when we were there. But it was still a very meaningful ceremony. I thought it was quite well done. Excellent.
Yeah, I thought it was a well executed plan that Karsten enlightened me, and it was like, yeah, well done. I'm glad that they figured out how to do it for everybody, and those who couldn't get it done have the opportunity to be installed at a later date anyway. So,
well, what our game was is to be ready to hit the ground running if and when they relax some of these restrictions on us. So we're ready to hit the ground running. So that we're in good shape compared to some of the other jurisdictions.
On the topic of the meeting that we had yesterday, I think I'm lucky if Worshipful Brother Chung got a chance to go to the district deputy's installation in his district. I'm not sure. Did you?
I had the opportunity, but my wife had made sure that I was out of town camping. Wow. And because they could install me at a later date, I guess we'll look forward to that as soon as we can all get back together in normal format.
Well, then I think I am lucky being the only one here, other than the author, who got to experience our Most Worshipful Grandmaster's address, which was read out by our District Deputy Grandmaster. And, I mean, I've only heard a few addresses, so by no means am I an expert on the field, but I thought that it was absolutely perfect. It was exactly on point, in my opinion, for what our jurisdiction needed, and I really wanted to commend the Grandmaster for writing that. That was beautifully done.
Thank you.
And it definitely talked about the future of Masonry and overcoming, adapting, and what was the full slogan that you're using?
Improvise, adapt, and overcome.
There you go. I thought that was very much on cue.
So just for those of us south of the border who aren't sure, So the Grand Lodge communication was Friday of last week, or Friday 2 days ago, correct?
Correct.
So did you have a whole lot of voting on resolutions and that sort of stuff, or did you just sort of bare bones?
What we did, Matt, was we installed the principal officers. We accepted the budget, passed the budget, and we had to have an election for a new Grand Treasurer, which was already done. It was sort of by acclamation. And the vote for the new Junior Grand Warden. The vote was a paper ballot that was mailed out quite a while back, and it came in, and they did the votes. And this year here, Right Worshipful Brother Mark Forrester, who used to be our Grand Treasurer, became our new Junior Grand Warden. So
it looks like his mother lodge is Prince Charles Lodge.
That's yes,
and that's a first for Prince Charles Lodge to have a member in the Grand Line of BC and Yukon. So we're quite proud of that.
Now, I'm probably mistaken here, but I don't think Henderson Lodge has had a Grand Line officer since Most Worshipful Brother Henderson himself. Probably mistaken. But I know that Asher Lodge has had 3 and soon to be 4 Grand Masters from our lodge.
And where's your mother lodge there, Don?
My mother lodge is Prince David Lodge 101 in Maple Ridge.
Nice.
We do ancient work there, which is Matt's work, basically.
I think all 4 of us do ancient work here.
Yep.
Is there any other?
No. There's that funny stuff we go and listen to at St. George's, but
The dark side, as Philip Durrell says.
Yeah.
Don't tell my mother lodge; it'll be fine. I can't remember who told me the joke, but at one point it was almost entirely ancient workers on Grand Line. I think there was one person who was an emulation work, and anytime there was anything going on, it was like, it's an ancient thing. You wouldn't get it.
Yeah. Most people don't even know what ancient work is, especially when you start talking to guys in Alberta and other parts of Canada, they haven't even heard of it.
Well, a lot of it's fairly close to the York rate, I think, in Alberta.
Right.
So
Go ahead there, Matt.
Oh, I'm just going to say, Most Worshipful, do you have are there any events that are on your calendar that you're hoping don't get canceled here in the near future? Do you have any big events coming up?
Well, just usually we go to Granite Falls.
Yep.
At this point, we can't get across the border. So, we are definitely in uncharted territory. We've got Barkerville coming up, and I believe it's canceled.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Was Barkerville still happening?
I haven't got a notice officially, but I was talking to some of the brethren online, and they said it's canceled because it wouldn't be able to have the church service or the meeting in the lodge room because it's quite small.
I'm just on the website here. I was trying to find your calendar, but I found a copy of your address. Would it be agreeable with you if we had a link to your address in the description below?
Sure.
Awesome. Because I thought it was a beautifully written address.
And one thing that we would also like is if you could email us a headshot or a post shot for the places where we can put in the visual for you.
Okay, I've got to get a new picture done for the Grand Lodge office. Maybe I could send that one. Would you need it by, Stephen?
Anytime in the next week or two. David's obviously not feeling well, and he'll edit this probably sometime in the next week or two. So
I can do that.
Excellent. That'd be great. Just to the Working Tools Gmail account's great.
Okay.
Right, and then everybody gets access to that. Right.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah.
So other than what am I trying to say? Do you feel like the education what am I trying to say? When we return to lodge, let's go that way. Do you feel that the lodges will be different? Will it be more educational? Will people have chucked the education entirely to online and be more, everything will be fraternal relationships? How do you foresee us coming out of this?
I don't think that would happen, Matt. I think people like to see the education portion done live. But but it is really good for some of the brethren that maybe are confined to the house or a long ways from the lodge and can't drive anymore at night, whatever. I think it should be a combination of both.
Yeah, my personal opinion is I kind of feel like, for my lodge at least, if we come out of this and we go back to where we were when we went into it, that I kind of feel like we've lost an opportunity there. We've have an opportunity here to figure out what we think is important and concentrate on that. And I'm afraid that the force of gravity is going to draw us back in, and we're all going to end up doing the same thing over again. And I'd hate to have that happen.
Yeah, well, I think that would be a crying shame if that happened. There's been discussions in our more light night organizing meetings as to whether or not what it's going to look like if we did get back together, and there was a lot of guys who agreed with the personal round table conversation that we have in our library when we're having these education meetings. That that live and in-person communication is really desired. So we're going to go back to that for sure. And it's my hope that the best of the online education components that have arisen from this pandemic will survive and become a regular thing online. I know that not everybody will be able to, because they will go back to some of their other previously scheduled things, and which will take away from the ability to be online. So I think it's going to be very interesting, and I think that those who build up a good following now and have good quality content will come out of this with the good online component, and will gain from that in our personal interactions when we're back that way.
What I've noticed as a personal note is a lot of times for some of these education nights, they're untiled meetings. I think we're going to get some membership out of some of those meetings with people bringing their friends in. And I think that would be a shame to lose too. We should encourage some of those meetings. Like a Grand Masonic Day would work wonderful on Zoom.
Mm-hmm. That's a brilliant idea.
I was on a meeting with the deputies and the Grand Masters of the West Coast here, and Grand Lodge of California had one meeting with 950 people on the Zoom meeting.
Wow!
Yeah, for an education.
That's quite the meeting to moderate, eh, Matt? Wow, that's a lot of people in there. I guess in some formats they just mute everybody and then have everybody raise their hands, and kind of like they did on that education for the DDGMs. Raise your hand and we'll take the questions one at a time, kind of thing. But isn't it amazing that that's a lot of people?
Well,
wow.
But that's we're going to try to. The Grand Line officers are going to try to do some things to keep us all together too. Like if by some chance we got the second wave of this, maybe we could attend a barbecue such as yours. At least get out there and meet the brothers.
Right.
And I think that it's incumbent upon us to do things like that. We got to think outside the box and make it work.
Yeah, most definitely.
And on that note, we're sort of running short on time. As you said, we're going to have to improvise, adapt, and overcome, and make this work. And this fraternity, and I'll put my 2 cents in, has survived for 300 years so far. I hoping we can make it through this after all the calamities that we've survived through.
Correct.
But well, on behalf of Worship Brother Stephen Chung and Connor Massey and myself, thank you very much, Most Worshipful, for coming on the show. And if you have any parting thoughts or anything you'd like to say before we go out?
Yes, the only one I would have is I relish the time when we can all get back to the norms of just a couple of months ago, when we can get to our main job, and that's making new Freemasons. And I'd just like to leave you with that thought and how wonderful it'll be when we get back there.
Well, thank you, Most Worshipful Sir, and thank you all for listening to the Working Tools Masonic Podcast. Goodbye.